Diane Gowski, we ask for you to come forward.
Thank you very much. There are only two sexes, male and female. We can reason this through our reason, medical fact, common sense, and biblical truth. Genesis.
Listen,
All right.
Excuse me, we're not going to hold your time. Again, we're trying to conduct this the best we can. If you cannot conduct yourself appropriately,
Yes.
you'll be requested and required to leave. Ma'am,
Thank you.
It's your time.
Thank you.
Please go
Please
ahead.
allow me to quote Genesis chapter 1. God created man in the image of himself. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. We are made by God. He is our only creator. Unfortunately, what transgender ideology, in my opinion, has created is a lie. The truth is that no matter how much a confused minor, a confused youth with gender dysphoria identifies with the opposite sex, a person cannot change into the opposite sex. Illusions can be crafted, appearances can deceive, but in Florida, doctors need to practice reality-based medicine. So-called gender-affirming care.
Excuse me. Security, please escort that person out.
Proud transgender woman.
This is not how we conduct business in a civilized society. Please go ahead.
So-called gender-affirming care with social transitioning, puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and mutilating surgeries are not authentic health care. They cause harm, some of which is irreversible, to our minors, and thus need to be prohibited from the practice of medicine in Florida. Do no harm, our Hippocratic oath serves us well as we continue to follow it. The children of Florida need and deserve your protection against all forms of child abuse, including those under the guise of medical practice. So-called gender-affirming care is medicalized child abuse, whether it's intentional or unintentional, whether it's realized or not. So-called sex reassignment surgeries are unjustifiable, unnecessary. The natural course of gender expression for 85% more of children will be to align with their biological sex. They need to go through puberty, not have their puberty blocked. They need to be able to develop normally. So thank you for supporting this rule, for standing for the truth and protecting the vulnerable children in Florida.
Thank you very much. Next is Aaron Brewer. You're recognized for 3 minutes. Please go ahead.
Dear board members, thank you for your time. My name is Aaron Brewer. I'm a former trans kid. As a child, I was insistent, consistent, and persistent that I was a boy following a sexual assault. I'm not alone. I've talked to dozens of girls who, like me, developed a transgender identity in order to run away from the difficult feelings they had after a sexual assault or other trauma. I have no doubt if the option to take puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, I would have done everything I could have to obtain them, including threatening suicide. It would have been so much easier for me to kill myself as a girl and become a boy rather than work through the underlying issues that triggered my gender dysphoria. In the short term, I likely would have felt better. Testosterone is a controlled substance, and almost anyone who takes it initially feels a sense of euphoria. It would have boosted my confidence and increased my energy. It would have allowed me to completely disassociate from myself as a girl and create a new persona who could pretend that the horrible trauma that triggered my gender dysphoria had happened to somebody else. But in the long term, it would have reinforced all the mistaken beliefs that caused me to develop gender dysphoria, that being a girl was bad, that it was my fault that those men hurt me, that my body was a mistake, or that it was too dangerous to be a girl, or that I was inherently flawed and the only way to survive was to become a different person. I never would have realized that my transgender identity was a coping mechanism. I am grateful to my school counselors and therapists who helped me understand my transgender identity was a result of the sexual assault, not because I was born in the wrong body. I shudder to think of what my life would have been like if I had been encouraged to medically transition. Puberty blockers would have retarded my growth and development. Cross-sex hormones would have caused my healthy body to be dysfunctional. The combination of both puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones would have left me sterile. In the short term, these interventions allow children to avoid the difficulties they are facing, whether they are grappling with homophobia, struggling with autism, or trying to recover from significant trauma. It is natural for children to try to do what they can to shut down difficult feelings, which is why it is our job to stop children from using drugs and alcohol to numb their pain. It is our job as adults to give children the message that no matter how intense their feelings are, they can work through them without dissociating from their bodies and becoming a different person. Because of the loving and caring, supportive therapists and teachers, I got the care I so desperately needed when I was processing what happened to me. They gave me the gift of healing, and I am so incredibly grateful. All children with gender dysphoria who are struggling deserve the same gift, and I thank you so much for granting that gift here today to the children of Florida. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Becky Nutt, please.
So I'm Becky Nutt, and I am a mother, a grandmother, a very concerned citizen, and I just want to thank you for your work, your courage, because it takes a lot of courage now. I am very concerned for our children and what they have to grow up in now. And a child, a child has to be 18 years old to go out and to vote. But a child can make a decision whether they need to be transformed to a male or a female. I don't think so. I watched my children grow up. I know that they would not have been mature enough to make a decision like that at 18 or 16 or younger. I want to see our children be able to have the help they need, but I want it done with science and research, wisdom and discernment. They are not emotionally, spiritually, or physically ready for decisions like that. And I think it takes a multitude of people to help them through decisions like that. And I encourage you to continue going forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Julie Framingham.
Good afternoon. My name is Julie Framingham, and I've been personally impacted by the harms of gender transition treatments through watching their effects on my son. My 28-year-old son has been identifying as transgender for the past 6 years. He suffered from depression as a kid and has been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. He began taking cross-sex hormones, and his mental health has only worsened. His depression and anxiety has grown to the point that he dropped out of university, and he is now anorexic and severely underweight. He has refused to get therapy, even though he acknowledges that therapy he received in the past was helpful, because he believes medical transition is the only answer, causing his mental illness to go untreated and harm to his physical health. I have also been authorized to tell the story of a mother named Jackie Crowley, whose daughter has experienced irreversible bone density loss due to puberty blockers. My husband and I were repeatedly told that the puberty blockers our preteen daughter was clamoring for were the answer for her anxiety and distress about her changing body. Gender-affirming mental health and medical professionals assured us that acceding to our daughter's demand for puberty blockers was necessary for her mental health. The issue of suicide was raised several times in a coercive manner. We were repeatedly assured that the puberty blockers were completely reversible. Based on these assurances, we consented to our daughter receiving a puberty-blocking implant. She had previously been diagnosed with depression, autism spectrum disorder with sensory issues, dyslexia, and dysgraphia. She also had experienced social trauma. However, none of these issues was addressed by healthcare professionals once they determined that she had gender dysphoria, nor did they offer any other treatment options. I learned through my own research that puberty blockers were shown to cause loss of bone density and diminish cognitive development. When we raised the issue, the doctors responded that they have been prescribing the blockers for many years to treat precocious puberty, and the reported bone loss was nothing to worry about. I had a bone density scan done for my daughter. It revealed that she had an 11% loss of bone density in one hip, 14% loss in the other, and a 7% loss in the lumbar region. She has developed osteopenia at a time in her life when her bone density should be increasing and her body building a reservoir of strong developing bones as an important protection against osteoporosis in adulthood. The physician nevertheless requested that she continue on to cross-sex hormones, that is testosterone. We were not informed this would likely sterilize our child. She continues to have loss of bone density that will significantly affect her physical health and growth and have lasting effects, possibly for the rest of her life. I urge the board to adopt a rule that will protect young people like our daughter.
Thank you very much. Next is Prisha Mosley.
Hi, my name is Prisha Mosley. I was 15 years old when I learned what trans was from other kids online. I found this community through the pro-anorexia community and was quickly love-bombed and indoctrinated. I had a turbulent home life and no friends. I was suffering from anorexia and borderline personality disorder as well as a recent rape. When I was told that all of my problems, like my self-hatred and suicidal ideation, were the result of being in the wrong body, I wholeheartedly believed it. I was in treatment for my personality disorder and eating disorder at this time, but my doctors did not communicate. I was in the hospital frequently to get stitches due to cutting and hospitalized even longer for my inability to eat. At first, I was affirmed by the fact that testosterone was increasing my appetite. I thought I was recovering. However, my suicidal thoughts and behaviors persisted. I dealt with severe anger issues and increased impulsivity. My voice began changing within 2 months, and there were changes to my genitals even sooner. I began to lose my hair. I now suffer from being disproportionate and clumsy because tea took away my hips and gave me large shoulders. My neck and shoulders burn all of the time. I can no longer sing. I lost my beautiful singing voice and the ability to sing professionally and in the community. I cannot even cry or raise my voice. I was silenced. Also, as a result of the testosterone, I had ovarian cysts for years, which caused pain and irregular bleeding. I have vaginal atrophy. I do not know if I can ever have kids. What is worse is I was put on these treatments when I myself was a kid. Eventually, my mental and emotional symptoms worsened. None of the medical treatments being dangled in front of me were helping, and I began to feel even more hopeless. I made the decision to detransition at 22. I was not medically supported in my decision. I quit testosterone cold turkey, which made me extremely sick. I moved over 1,000 miles away from everyone I know and love to do this by myself. Now I deal with constant pain and shame. I struggle to be social and have relationships. Dating is impossible and my heart is broken. I'm fighting for the life I could have had. My birthright was taken away from me. I fully support you creating a rule that prohibits doctors from prescribing these treatments to young people under 18.
Thank you. Zoe Hawes, you're recognized. Please proceed.
My name is Zoe Hawes. I'm a 23-year-old wife and expectant mother now, who at the age of 16 truly believed with every fiber of my being that I was a boy and that transitioning was the solution. Growing up, I experienced a lot of trauma. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety in middle school, and puberty was awful. I could not accept my body. I wanted to escape. By the age of 16, I was very unstable and suicidal. I ran away from my dad's side of the family, who I knew would not accept me being trans, and I came out to my mom. She was scared I was going to kill myself if she didn't affirm me, because that is the narrative. I was immediately taken to a gender therapist who within 3 months heard my story, heard the trauma, and still diagnosed me with gender dysphoria, still wrote that letter recommending I needed to start testosterone injections. So only 7 months after coming out, at the age of 16, I started T. I believed transitioning was going to fix everything. My period stopped, facial hair grew. Pretty soon, I was passing completely. And I was truly euphoric at first. But my mental health did not improve. I became more suicidal, more unstable, and anxiety became debilitating. I could not leave my house aside from going to the gas station for months because I was so scared of passing, like if people thought I was a girl. I was in and out of mental hospitals 6 times while being affirmed as male by my immediate family, while being encouraged in my decision to transition by all of my doctors, multiple psychiatrists. I was later diagnosed with complex PTSD related to not being accepted by my dad's side of the family as a man. I was also diagnosed with OCD at the same time. I desperately wanted surgery and a hysterectomy. That was the thing that was going to fix everything. The thing that would keep me alive is what I believed, but I could not afford them. After a suicide attempt in February of 2018, I came to realize that just changing my body was not fixing anything. I started working really hard in psychotherapy, but it wasn't enough. I still believed I was male, and I started to get a little better, and then it just wasn't enough. A year later, in 2019, Jesus came to me in my bedroom, not in a church. I began to find healing. I have not been suicidal since stopping testosterone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is Helena Kirshner. Helena Kirshner, you're recognized. Please proceed.
Thank you. My name is Helena Kirshner, and I'm 24 years old. I'm here today as a detransitioner with grave concerns about the so-called gender-affirming model of responding to minors and young adults who believe they are transgender. As a young girl, I had no discomfort with being female. What I had was a history of family issues, difficulties fitting in with other girls, eating disorders, self-harm, and depression. When I was 14, I began spending a lot of time online in communities where countless other troubled adolescent girls were encouraging each other to interpret their social, emotional, and body image difficulties as signs of gender dysphoria, with the belief that body modification would be a transformative solution. When I took steps in the direction of being trans, I received more positivity and encouragement than I had ever experienced. By age 17, I identified as a trans boy and was fully convinced that my only chance at a happy life would be to take hormones and undergo surgeries to change my body. My school counselor and school therapist both affirmed my beliefs, and the psychologist told my mother that she was risking my suicide if she would not agree to testosterone treatments, but she thankfully was not intimidated. I went to a Planned Parenthood a few weeks after my 18th birthday. None of the clinicians were interested in what was behind my desperation to change my body. They told me that because I seemed so sure, they would prescribe the hormones that day. I told the clinicians that I wanted a high dose so I would see more changes in my body. They agreed and prescribed me 100 milligrams of testosterone per week. The mental health effects of testosterone were profound. I began experiencing uncontrollable episodes of rage and paranoia where I was a danger to myself and others. I also became much more suicidal and self-harming. Due to this, I was hospitalized twice. None of the clinicians in the hospital or outpatient centers ever mentioned testosterone as a possible source for my mysterious symptoms. Instead, I was prescribed a litany of psychiatric drugs. This time was so dark that it caused me to question the original promises of a joyful trans life. And after 5 years of identifying as transgender, I stopped taking testosterone and began the journey of detransitioning. My mysterious new mental illness went away soon after and has never returned. I'm now forever grateful that clinicians were not able to affirm me any further. I'm very fortunate to have not experienced any obvious physical detriments, but the negative impact of so-called gender affirmative care on my life cannot be understated. Not only was I in serious danger under the influence of testosterone, but the mental process of returning to reality, coping with everything that happened, and facing the mental health issues that were compounded by these experiences has been so difficult. I ask the board to see these dangers of so-called gender affirmation and create a rule prioritizing exploring exploratory therapy and long-term health over dangerous treatments for these vulnerable young people.
Thank you very much. You are recognized, Amy Atterbury, for 3 minutes.
My name is Amy Atterbury. I'm a mother and a resident of the state of Florida. I feel like I have told my daughter's story 1,000 times, but I will tell her story again today to help validate the need for compassionate care for children who are confused about their biological sex. My daughter was 14 when she first identified as being male. This happened after she was indoctrinated into gender identity at school, unbeknownst to me. I later discovered that she was visiting websites like YouTube and Tumblr, which only furthered her false belief that she could transition into a male. At age 16, a pediatric endocrinologist taught my daughter to inject herself with testosterone without my consent. At age 17, doctors performed a double mastectomy and a radical hysterectomy on my daughter without my consent. She was able to change her name and gender in court at age 17, even though she was not emancipated. Her mental health diagnoses were documented in her medical records, yet doctors chose to poison, sterilize, and mutilate my daughter before she turned 18. More surgeries followed, and more surgeries are planned. My daughter was a happy, healthy child with a seemingly bright future. Her health and happiness were stolen by medical and mental health professionals who should have known better. The trajectory of her life has been permanently altered and not for the better. She is not happy, she is not well, she is not thriving, and she's not living her best life. I think it is important not to place blame on parents of transgender identifying children, regardless of whether parents affirm their children's transgender identity or fight against it. To be clear, I did everything in my power to stop doctors from harming my daughter. However, I understand why terrified parents may choose to trust that affirmative care is the only viable option when they are asked questions like, would you rather have a dead daughter or a son, or vice versa? A more honest question would be this: would you like for us to provide compassionate care for your child, or would you prefer that we poison, sterilize, and mutilate your child? Affirmative care is the very opposite of compassionate care. I would like to sincerely thank the members of this board for your compassion, intelligence, wisdom, and most of all, for your courage in fighting for the health and safety of children. Thank you
very much.